All right, gas generators. One of the things that ain't really talked about so much is gas generators. Well, let's face it, they're stinky, they're noisy, an older technology. However, it has been improved. They are making them more silent. However, they are not power station silent. Other than the fan blowing in this thing in order to cool it down on high stressful loads, for the most part, they're pretty quiet, and they're in the like 54 decibel range. These things, typically the gas generators, uh, if you get anything around 70, you're doing good. But usually, you're not going to pay that much money to get a quiet generator. Especially, let's consider it this way, or look at it this way, is that if you're in an apartment complex, this is a no-go. And the reason being is because, well, you got to figure out a way to run the wire, and you got to like go out there and make sure that it's got gas in it. On top of that, you'd have to make sure nobody steals it because it's right there. But it's a power station in a house. That is perfect for an apartment, especially because no landlord's going to complain about that whatsoever. They're not going to say, "Oh, your power station's too." Nope, they don't say that. However, I will say this is that after a while, these things only hold so much battery. They're great for if the weather is outside rocking and rolling, like trees are like, and the rain's like, there's no way a generator's going to put up with that. However, it ain't going to do that forever. And at some point, you're going to need to put some energy into this bad boy. A solar panel, let's face it, the sun cooperates when it does. Clouds are, just really going to be the problem there. But, or I'll say wind and weather as well. Because let's face it, you're not throwing a solar panel out there at 80-mile-per-hour winds, because if it's really coming down anyway, um, the sun ain't going to do you any favors. Hey, because there ain't going to be no sun. It's just going to blow all over the yard. But I will say this, the perfect pairing, if you've got a house set up, or even in a situation where you could take a gas generator out and plug it into this guy and charge him. This thing, like, particularly runs at 1600 watts. This guy can take that, no problem. He has a fast charging up to 1,000 watts. I think it's 1,000. It could be 1,200 watts, but let's just say 1,000 watts. Okay, well, yeah, I think so, because he's 1,056 watt hour, so he will take 1,000 watts, no problem. Their ad says 58 minutes. So basically, if you were to have this thing outside, plug him in there, and then run this for 58 minutes, he would be 100% charged. You could take him back inside and go run whatever appliance that you need still. I mean, if it's a refrigerator setup, that's good, because the insulation that would keep it like cool for a while, you can get by an hour with a refrigerator just close and make sure you don't open doors or whatever. Then after that, come back in. If you have a house, even better yet, because considering, I don't know what your neighbor situation would be. If you're out in the country, awesome. But if you're not, in a state of an emergency, nobody's going to complain about a generator. Noise ordinance goes right out the window. It's all about, hey, let's get things somewhat civilized. So you'd fire this thing up, have the cord in. He has passed through. So you take this guy here, plug him in to him here, and then from there on out, you would be able to, oh, there we go, the outlets. I've never ran him yet, but, or even put oil or gas for that matter into him. I have not needed to, obviously, but emergency situation, You plug into him, into here. You can get one of those really long extension cords. Hopefully, you get the 100-foot, but get the yellow one. It would be the best one because that is like the super thick gauge wire. I think it is 12 gauge wire. AWG 12 American wire gauge. But the yellow cord, once you plug it in, it has an indicator light that goes on inside the cord itself that you would plug into here. Well, via the cord, you plug right in, and from there on out would be able to charge this, but you lower the watts because this would only be, say we're going to by a scenario of this is 1600 watts pure sine wave, by the way. But if it wasn't, that'd be a different story. Hold on, I'll get back to that in a second. But so you're charging this guy, let's say you're charging him at like 200 watts. That's the smallest amount you could do, or even 400 watts, 600-ish. But you've also got loads plugged into this, and you need to keep those running at the same time too. Maybe a TV, you got time, you got gas. So it's going to run in through this guy, and from there on out, he's going to be powering those while charging himself up. And if you got time, charge the expansion battery at the same time too. I would be more concerned about getting this guy charged up and just tough it out. I got a couple of small power stations. I got a few more power stations that I would just run some things off of the essentials. But like I said, as far as anything dealing with gas generators, they perfectly complement these power stations because you're not always going to have the ability to charge this thing up by sun or any other means. But anyhow, all right, so let's look at it this way. If you were to run this guy directly into something like your TV, your refrigerator, or what have you, and let's say that this is kind of a crappy old system. Well, so in the olden days, remember when you'd be like, oh, the generator's getting low on gas. For those of you who are generator people. And you'd be like, oh, the generator's getting low on gas. I can tell because it's starting to throttle down because the lights are dimming. Well, that's a surge right there. And that's not very good for your sensitive electronics. However, these guys deal with that very well. They are all about surge. And the reason being is that they have that switchover time that if it wasn't just straight wall power, this, I don't know if it's 30 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds. I know the EcoFlow is the one that I always show a lot. The EcoFlow River 3 Plus, the 270 version. It has a 10 millisecond switchover time. So it says, that's another story for another video, but it would automatically switch over if it had a low surge like that, where the lights were dimming and stuff, and it would take over. So therefore, not hurting your sensitive electronics, your expensive $2,000 fridge, or any of your other appliances that you got plugged into it that, like I said, are sensitive. These things aren't always like perfect in every way, but it is definitely complementary to these. And you are starting to see now where the market is starting to respond by coming up with a complementary gas generator for their products. I believe Opus has one out. EcoFlow's already had one out. They're on their second version. It's not, it's getting better, but Anker may be coming out with one. I know they got a generator port for their F3000, and they also have an accessory port for the Anker F3800 Plus, but don't know if they got their own generator for that yet. Who knows? We'll see. Obviously, they would know, but I don't know, nor have I read anything about it. Anyway, moral of the story is that Gas generators are important. They still have a role in this world, a very good complementary role to this. Now, I will say this, as far as like a sub pump situation or a water pump situation, gas generators aren't that great because this thing, it's going to be running. So this one's the 1600 watts, right? So it's going to be fully running to operate 1600 watts. Well, the sub pump doesn't need to be on right now. Okay, well, that could be 20 minutes, a half hour until it needs to be turned on again. And if it's raining outside, you know, you may not have a good spot to put this in. Or if the weather's even worse than just raining. So, but that's where a power station does come in because it's already got that energy stored and it uses it on demand. This is just going to kick it out regardless of whether you use it or not. And it's always going to be a noise monster. So pairing these two together is the best friends you could possibly have. One without the other, I mean, you're there. It's 50% is better than 100% of nothing. But if you can do both because it will serve you well in the future for any possible emergencies. However, I have yet to put oil or gas into this guy like I had said. So until then, I will just rely on little buddy here, but I've got backup plans just in case. Solar don't work for me, I've got gas. Anyway, please like, comment, or subscribe. I would prefer you subscribe because we need subscribers. In order to continue on with this content or any other content pertaining to the power stations or power management in general, we do need your support. So please like and subscribe the video, and thanks for watching. Cut.